Do whatever you do to the best of your ability to do it. That's it. Should I write about this? Should I write about that? Which one is going to be better for you? Write about that one. And then when you write about something and you go, I really should have written the other one. Well, then write about that one too. Again, back to martial arts. One of the five birds principles is anything is better than nothing. If you're just defending yourself from an attacker, anything you do, anything, ignorant or otherwise, is better than just standing there and getting hit or punched. All right? Anything.
Gordon Richiusa, welcome to Produce Your Passion.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for your patience in our technical difficulties as we're recording this.
If we need to, we'll just cut out all the bad spots and shove the good stuff together.
Yeah, well, like we were saying, we live in a world where technology is great, but then when it's not working, then everything's not so great. So,
When we get around to it, we have a chance. Everything in my head is all connected to a story. Okay, so that's one of my one of my things. But what you just said reminds me of a story, a very, very important one that I hope to get around to telling you. I can tell you now, of course, but uh, we'll follow whatever format you'd like. Would
okay,
you like to
well,
hear this one? Start
yeah,
with
let's
this?
go. Let's go ahead. Well, let's just start off. We'll start with the story, then we'll go into who you are and what you do.
Well, and this kind of covers some of it too. So I worked in the LA County jails for 20 years, and I was a teacher and curriculum coordinator for about 30,000 students, right? Um, which offered me all kinds of opportunities because not only did I work with the inmates, but I also was a martial arts instructor who worked with the deputies and other police departments teaching self-defense techniques, etc. So I had a lot of special privileges. I created all kinds of stuff. But when the Apple Corporation came out with this new box that they called a Mac, a Macintosh, they asked our program, the correctional ed program, if we would come up with a book to explain word processing to people because it was a new thing. When I was in school, I wrote my master's thesis with a typewriter and wasn't allowed to make more than one mistake per page. All right. And if I made a mistake on the page, I could, two mistakes, I couldn't white it out and try to sneak it past. I had to retype the entire page. Right. That's how things were done in those days. So when the Macintosh came out and word processing was a thing, which was readily available to everybody like me, they asked if we'd write this book. So I created a book called Vision Revision, which was basically you have to change the way you look at things, including writing. Because now everybody, and now we're seeing it on a grander scale, but everybody was able to uh, put pictures in what they were saying to people. And even if they couldn't draw, the Macintosh itself would have pictures that you could put in that were, stick figures mostly, but it made everything better, right? And could correct your mistakes. And you could say, I wish I hadn't said that first. I wish I had just moved stuff around. It was fantastic, right? However, we had to stick to the format. And so I wrote this book called Vision Revision. There was about 6 people on the panel, but I was primarily the person in charge of this whole thing. Had a lot of extra time. I made movies and for the sheriff department, for instance, and did a lot of other stuff. So after this thing came out, they wanted to send me to speak at different colleges and what's the place in Northern California where Apple is at?
Oh, oh man, Cupertino.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they sent me there to tell them, you know, about the experience, right? And I had my one of my black belt students was also my partner in the jail. He was on the other side of a glass wall where we basically were creating all kinds of fun games, throwing papers over the wall and stuff. But he um, he and I were sent out to talk to these technicians about, this thing that they had created. And I titled it More Than a Microwave. And it was based, and I told this story to people at these different colleges. Um, a friend of mine, another friend in jail, was a teacher, and he told the story about when he was 8 years old. He walked into this department store called a White Front, and there was this guy all dressed in a suit, and he had a woman standing next to him dressed in a dress, and she was helping him. And he had this box, and he was telling everybody that this was the wave of the future. He was going to be able to cook bacon in this box and in a matter of seconds, right? And so this kid, 8 years old, had studied a little magic when he was that age, and he said, "I've seen this trick before. They're going to put something in there, and then somebody underneath the box is going to switch the bacon, right?" So, anyways, they did the thing, and he pushed some buttons, and ding, came out bacon was. And here's this 8-year-old kid looking at this audience. He's going, "These adults are stupid. They don't." This is ridiculous. It's a plastic plate. This thing, if this could cook bacon, it would be burning and melting the bacon. Well, my point at that point to Apple Corporation was people are technology always, always, always outstrips our ability to utilize it. And we see that now, what we see as the Apple phone, the iPhone, for instance, it used to be something they called the Newton in the old days that just got thrown out because you could write on it and it would turn it into text and, stuff like that. They were like a half step between the phone and the pager, and so my point was, I still, to this day, I do not know what all the buttons on my microwave do. Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah. And you're going to hand people these phones, and we see this all the time. People don't know how to use every tool that's available in their kit. Uh, so now we're talking about AI and so forth and so on down the road, and I'm thinking I need to really revise my more than a microwave speech.
Ah,
And get back and basically say, technology is supposed to help us, and that's great when it does, right? But sometimes we're not going to all become technicians. We're not all going to become computer programs. Not all going to become experts in AI. We're not going to all become people who can do video, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, down the road. So that's the story that you just reminded me of. Just a warning.
no, that's
Everything triggers something.
that's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, all the time people show, "Oh, did you know you could do this on your iPhone?" I'm like, "What?" I had zero idea. So no, you bring up a good point. It's like it's amazing having these technologies, but to people, we don't even realize what we're getting most of the time. Like,
Right.
so no, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea about that story. And when I met you at the Gula World event, a couple months back, the second I started talking to you, I'm like, whoa, this guy produces his not just passions, multiple. And how did you get started? Because you are a guy who has done a lot of projects, and you are still doing a lot of projects. So, what makes Gordon tick, and what got you on this journey of someone who can produce their passion?
I think I've always had a peculiar way of looking at things, and I think a lot of it has to do with I apparently have had MS for a long time, didn't really realize it, for instance. I'm definitely dyslexic, but I have a master's degree in English literature. I have learned how to cope and also to distill things down into a way that I can understand it, right? So people ask me, what do you do? Well, in my head, I'm doing one thing really right now, but and it's really just writing my own story. I'm producing my passion all the time because I see it kind of in a different way. I see what I'm doing from a perspective of I've got to take this information that's coming into me and make it understandable because I want to be able to remember it. I want to be able to utilize it, which has helped me over the years, many, many, many times. My students have always thanked me, martial arts students or English students or whatever students that I've had, and my children especially. They grew up with this stuff uh, as a daily thing. We never went shopping to the store. We always went on an adventure. For instance, and I always want to look for um, I want to look for the best and the most utilizable information for myself. And I know it's selfish, but I learned, thank goodness, that while everything matters equally, um, the things that we can do that help us and maybe help other people, but at least don't hurt others, those are the most valuable, you know? So that's how I got started was, I can remember the day I learned how to read, for instance, when I was in 2nd grade, because they all kept telling me I was really smart. How come you're not getting this, And I'm going, "I don't even know what this is." I don't understand. You're going up on the board and you're writing about the accents of words, etcetera, and I just I'm not hearing you. It's like you're talking a different language. So, I'm sitting outside because they put me with another student outside in 2nd grade, and the teacher was on the board with all these words, and she's talking, and she's saying, "Well, what about this? What about that?" And I looked at the board across the entire classroom, and I went, "Wait a second. That word, that word, that word, that word, that word, that word are all the same." I could see the whole page, right? And wait a second, she said that's, this word, or, she said that that's a whatever, and so forth. So it's just like, boom, I could read all of a sudden. And it wasn't because I was doing what they were saying, it was because I was doing what I could do. So that's basically how I've done it. So I made what are called capsules for my martial arts students, for instance, complicated techniques and katas and so forth. And it's just a picture, a diagram with a very little bit of writing underneath it, because you have to have been in class and asked your questions for this to make sense to you, right? So I did that for all my katas, but I also did it for things like grammar and science and government. And I just made all these things so I could, they're talking about these ideas, and I go back and I go, this sentence, okay, I get it now. I understand. Oftentimes, like even right now, when I'm having a conversation with somebody, it's almost like I'm reading a prompter. I let the ideas organize in my head, and then before they come out my mouth, I just check them over real fast and spit them out. So um, and because I've put so much time into writing, I've been a writer since I was a little kid. I've been a lot of things since I was a little kid. I basically am the adult that I grew up to be, essentially, and was taught to be by a couple of pretty good parents who were just regular people just like me. We all have our own problems. We had our own desires, but it's always comes back to simple things like my parents wanted to be parents. They wanted to have children, and so they did. And then they decided they wanted to be good parents, you know, and and to do that, they realized that some of the things that they knew and had done that maybe weren't things that they wanted to share. They wanted to share the things, their aspirations, and also point out your strengths and weaknesses to the children, and encourage you to do your thing. So, I've always kind of seen myself as producing my own story in a sense. So when I heard about your show, Produce Your Passion, I thought, well, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect because everything that I have ever written is about this for people, including my latest book, The Conditions of a Solitary Bird, is about Carlos Castaneda's work, for instance. And I wrote this when I was a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid. I revived it now and added to it so that it's up to date, and it tells the story that I want people to know about me. I don't want you know I'm a failure at many things, but I have at least enough sense to go, this is not working for me. I'm not going to do that anymore. And one of the other things that I think I got I got started because as I put effort into my writing, and because I was a martial artist, always in the background, I had discipline, and I had people who were supporting whatever it is I was doing and supporting my way of doing things. So I've been really, really, really lucky in a sense, but it's always important to, if you think of everything being equally important, to be able to, you know, get the wheat and the chaff separated at some point. And just, there's things people ask me about complicated things that I just go, look, that's that's not in my wheelhouse. I'm not gonna take a side on this issue. That's how I came up with the Dragon Slayer syndrome, for instance.
Which wow, that first of all, there's a lot. First of all, I love how you said there's the decision to become parents, but it's another decision to decide if you're going to be good parents. That goes deep right there. and I love how you talked about, because this we haven't talked about this too much on here, so I'm glad you brought it up. I don't know if we go with the idea of pivoting, but it's one thing to continuously go down a path when you really believe in it and you really feel it, but there is another side to that where no, maybe it is time to do something else. Could you dive a little into that? Because I talked to a lot of people lately about that, because a lot of us aren't quitters, but at the same time, sometimes your efforts are better spent other places. So could you unpack that a little bit? And I want to get to the dragon thing too, so I'm not forgetting about that.
Well, and in my head, thank goodness, I've distilled it all down to the five principles of everything, and really, I'm only doing one thing, and that's how I created the nonprofit, for instance. But the thing to remember in what you just said is change is built into life. Life is change. Life is you can't it's no static. People get older. We change, our bodies change, our goals change. If you think of life as being like a game, it's a game where the goalposts change and sometimes the tools to achieve your goals change. And it happens right as it's happening, right while you're living. You can't plan for everything. You can't see what's going to happen in the future. And one of the reasons why I don't think about and very comfortable with my own thoughts here, I don't think about what's going to happen when I die. How could I possibly put any effort into that? I'm putting all my effort into living right now, right? So when I realized that change is inevitable, it's one of the principles of everything is the principle of adaptability and being able to understand that change happens and you have to change. You must change. I'm in 3 martial arts halls of fame. I've been known as a lot of different things, but I can't be a martial artist like I used to be because I have MS. I had a deadly infection. I have prosthetics all over my body. I have uh, discs and plates and prosthetics in my legs. But every single morning I do Tai Chi the way I can do it. I'm an archer. I've been an archer since I was 8 years old, and, I work for USA Archery, the Olympic sanctioning body of archery. Next week, I will be teaching the therapists and veterans and administrators at the Long Beach, Veterans Center archery. I don't shoot my bow the same way I did when I was younger, but I shoot my bow and I go through the motions of shooting my bow every single day, every single day. Tai Chi is as well. I've been in hospital beds without the ability to walk, okay, because of my disease, because of bad medical treatment. That's another story we could talk about sometime. But um, I did Tai Chi seated on the edge of the bed. Other inmates, or rather, patients would come in and they would do it with me in their wheelchairs, which gave me the idea. I'm a member of a, MS Warriors group, a self-help group, that meets on Zoom, and I've taught to the, MS Society seated, uh, Tai Chi, for instance, and I just made it up on the spot. It you can learn all the same things like that thing I did with you then, that demonstration. All these things relate to different people, including especially, people with disabilities. I've learned a lot from people with disabilities. I've learned about my visual sense from blind archers, people who cannot see the target, but they've learned to make their capsules and follow their formula to hit the bullseye from 70 yards with an arrow. So, I look at everybody as a teacher. I look at, uh, every student I've ever had as a teacher, and I know that people appreciate certain things like, just you telling them, "Thank you." Or I never thought of it that way. That to me, if somebody says that to me, thank you, like you just did, I people haven't looked at it the same way. I don't think I'm ever coming up with anything that's new, honestly. I think what I'm doing is I'm putting it in a perspective for somebody who's had a lot of problems and has overcome them. And now that's my thing. My thing is just to figure out new ways to develop as life changes.
I think that was a perfect thank you for sharing that. I think that's a perfect segue into the next part of this conversation, which is you're someone who has produced a lot of passions, but I'm sure there's been obstacles along the way. So, can you talk about some of the obstacles you've encountered? You can pick whatever projects you want, maybe you want to use or keep it general. Obstacles you've encountered in your producing journey, and then how have you overcome those?
I think that the biggest obstacles are always thinking that the obstacle is the thing, whatever it happens to be, right? Which is really the Dragon Slayer syndrome in a nutshell. Uh, in the Dragon Slayer syndrome, I basically say to people, and I asked this question, I asked it to you, I believe, without any kind of introduction or anything. I ask it to all my students. Are you a dragon or a dragon slayer? And everybody has an opinion. Every single person has an opinion about that. And I've had people get into heated arguments, so hours long, husbands and wives differing opinions about their spouses. So a spouse will say, "I'm a dragon," and the spouse will say, the other spouse will say, "No, you're not a dragon. You're a dragon slayer," and vice versa, right? Like that. So my whole point is that we have perceptions that are, qualities, and one of them is that we, as human beings, one of our strengths is that we solve problems. We we make snap decisions that used to be when, a million years ago when we were running around on the fields or climbing trees or whatever we were doing. Uh, we, um, you know, rock falls off a cliff. We said, "Oh, I got to move out of the way." You know, you made a decision. everything is like that. Every moment is really like that. You can go left, you can go right. You can look over here and watch that person closely, or you can so somebody might be looking at me from behind my head, and I'll turn around and see who's looking at me. You have to be able to respond in an instant, not just in with visual cues, but you have to really trust your intuition as well, for instance. And that might be if there's any real differences between dragons and dragon slayers in this scenario, the big difference is one is more physically oriented and the other one is more mystically oriented, right? Uh, which may or may not even be two different things, honestly, from a scientific perspective. But for me, it's easier if I have a choice of coming up with images that make my life healthy, happy, and successful. Then I will always choose the magical part. I will choose the metaphor. I will, I'll choose that. So in this case, dragon slayers are the dragon slayer syndrome. Basically, ends up there's no such thing as dragons. Why are we arguing about things that are not real? What are we really arguing about? We're arguing about collective and individual consciousness, perhaps, doing things that don't hurt other people or doing things without regard for hurting other people. That's really what it comes down to in my head, see? So that's where I came up with the dragon slayer syndrome. And in my somebody interviewed me a long time ago for Black Belt Magazine about Five Birds martial arts, which is a style I made up, right? On purpose, I tell people, I've had teachers, but I don't follow their formula because I am never going to be like my instructors. I, I made up Five Birds martial arts based on a personal vision I had, right? Anyways, in my interview with this, there's lots of different words that I come up to help people understand martial arts, which can be complicated and also very simple. The simplicity of it is, um, in self-defense, whatever you do that defends you is good. If that's your goal, to not be injured by somebody else, you can accomplish that. The best self-defense techniques are those that basically mitigate problems before they occur, right? So you look at your life and you say, well, if I walk over there next to those guys that are all, looking like, they're carrying chains and stuff, or if I walk over there with everybody who's, patting each other on the back and cheering and singing songs, I'll probably be better off over on the side of the street where people are singing songs and patting each other on the back. So pick that side of the street,
It
pretty much.
it
And
reminds me of prevention is easier than treatment.
right, exactly. And beyond that, though, in my deputy classes, when I taught them self-defense classes, I asked them, if you're wrestling with somebody and your gun falls on the floor, what are you going to do? And if they said, I'm going to try and get my gun back, then they lost. See, if somebody pulls a knife on you and the knife gets knocked out of their hand, that person is probably going to go after the knife. So who's really trying to hurt you, the knife or the person? That's where self-defense comes in. If you're gonna learn techniques to defend yourself, then really what you're learning are either techniques I call defense awareness, which is the prevention part of it. And if you absolutely have to go to the other end of the spectrum, which police officers, that's their job, then you have to say, what is really my job in life? What is it really that I'm trying to accomplish? Am I trying to accomplish getting more, go back to the million years ago, coconuts and bananas and everybody else? Or am I trying to get through this period of life, regardless of what I think might happen afterwards? All right. Am I trying to get through this period of life healthy, happy, and successful without hurting anybody? And I think that is what most people will say. So that's where I come from on that question.
Yeah, it seems like it's really just setting that mindset. That having that mindset, it doesn't matter what's gonna come your way, that mindset's gonna help propel you through whatever's coming, and I like what you said about unfortunately in LA, that's like a real example on picking what side of the street depending what part, but you're exactly right, it's like, why even put yourself in that position, you
Right.
know? So having that awareness, so I really like how you brought that down, and, I love the dragon thing, by the way, that's a
The
that's a
first
great
principle of everything is the principle of applied awareness, basically. That's human beings, right or wrong, we are very opinionated about one thing. Human beings are the best thing ever. And so what we do means everything. In fact, the five principles of everything is based, in my opinion, on this. It's based on five is a number that comes up all the time, on both sides, dragons and dragon slayers, there's this five seems to be a number. Three seems to be a number also, because we see that there's this leads to this, and this happens in the middle. So three is a number that comes up a lot, right? But it's all because we're very conceited. We think that we're the best. We think words are the best thing in the world, because why? Because we made it up. We think mathematics can solve everything, because why? Because we made it up. Uh, you know, uh, so that's just the way it is. Rather than try to change people to not think words are important, or not think math is important, or not think um, being the biggest bully around is important, I say, well, let's see how we can change the perspective. So I've come up with incentivizing doing good. I created the nonprofit that I have. My father was a Pearl Harbor survivor. That's another story, perhaps. But he made the only sweetheart souvenir from Pearl Harbor, which is this image. Two hearts is one.
nice.
Two hearts pushed together into one thing. So he made this bracelet for my mother. Anyways, it's in a museum now, Pacific Island Ethnic Art Museum in Long Beach, also. But incentivizing doing good, I am never going to change. If there's a lot of talk about oligarchy these days, which I think is a word that probably should just be replaced so that it's understood by a larger group of people. But rather than having to explain what your word means when you're having a conversation with somebody, just pick a simple word. What is my advice usually? But why can't we? If people just want money, let them get money by doing something good. That's my motto in Heroes Hearts: do something good. People always say, "Oh man, you do so much. You've done this. And what? Thank you so much for helping me with this or whatever." And I just say, "Look, it's just purely selfish. I understand that I can incentivize doing good. In fact, that's my job. My job is just to figure out ways to do something good. This is a great job. It's a great way to live." And that's what really we're learning more and more. Young people are always 50 years ahead of everybody else. My master's thesis, I wrote 50 years ago, and I'm bringing it back now because it means something, right? It's more meaningful even to me, right?
I have to acknowledge this is awesome, and I have to acknowledge you said something too that no one's brought up yet that I've been tapping into lately. You talked about a project or the book you wrote when you were 19, 20, 21. Now that you're bringing it back, reviving. I have projects from even 10 years ago, realizing like, oh, I can do this again, and I can do it now with new knowledge and new insights. So I bring that up just to say, sometimes when you create something, you don't know what's gonna happen to it down the road. Could you talk a little bit about that? Like, because you have so many projects, I'm sure you can pull from the past, like, "Oh, yeah, this is actually relevant today." Maybe it's more relevant today than it was back then when I came up with it. Could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. One of the many, many, many projects, but something that I've created. In fact, my all my writing students, every time I teach a writing class, one of the first things I say is write things down on paper. Don't put them into memory banks somewhere or on hard drives that you're never going to see again. Because having that tangible piece of paper, even if you just have a bunch of stacks, you can just go in and pull a piece of paper out. I have ideas that I wrote when I was a kid that have turned into full-length scripts, right? So, another thing for me is that's my thing. I try to figure out how to make whatever it is out there, which usually for me is more interesting than what's happening in here. Uh, I wrote a column for the Guam Tribune for 2 years. Every week I wrote this column in the stateside Guam. It was called Stateside Guam News in the Guam Tribune. And I had never been to Guam, right? But my job in the United States was to find somebody on the mainland who was Guamanian, who was Chamorro. And every single person had a fantastic story to tell, and they all thought that they had nothing to say that was interesting. And every single story was fascinating because it started off with, I'm Chamorro. I'm and this is what I did with it, you know? So, that's where, like to come from, is to look at, um, how I can, in fact, Heroes Hearts, the nonprofit that I started, is built on projects. It's not built on just what I do. I demonstrate with what I do, what I'm talking about, but I want to help other people produce their passion. I have a series that I've been doing for ever. I mean, for years, called Message in a Bottle. And it was just me trying to get people to, when they say something to me that's interesting, I say, like I did to you, I think. I said, would you say that on camera?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because I want to remember that. And I know that I'm going to remember it better if I videotape you saying it and then put it together, edit it, and make sure that sticks in my head. And everybody comes to me and they go, thank you for making these videos. Well, I'm glad that absolutely, you're welcome. But thank you for making the video for me, right? Thank you for doing this because you're helping me live a better life. You're helping me be a better person. You're helping me uh, justify whatever, thing I've come up with over the years. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love and heading to our next part of the conversation, for those, because you have so many things, we could talk for 10 hours. So we'll have to do part 2, 3, 4. um, so for those people that are tuning into this, and I'll start with the first group, the ones that feel a passion for something and they see you like, man, Gordon has done so many things, but I just don't know where to start. What advice do you have for those people that want to produce their passion, but aren't doing it or haven't done it for whatever reason?
just do something, do anything. Um, you know, uh, uh, One of my new phrases that seems to resonate is, do whatever you do to the best of your ability to do it. That's it. Um, People, should I write about this? Should I write about that? Which one is going to be better for you? You know, write about that one. And then when you write about something and you go, I really should have written the other one. Well, then write about that one too. But you have to do, because, again, back to martial arts, one of the five birds principles is anything is better than nothing. If you're just defending yourself from an attacker, anything you do, anything, ignorant or otherwise, is better than just standing there and getting hit or punched, kicked or whatever. All right. Anything. Running away, great technique. Staying out of reach of the other person so they can't hurt you. Right. The five basic, and again, five basic strategies, I've summed up into, uh, to stick, slip, jam, run, or change the game. That's the five principles of everything. It's the same thing. It's all the same thing. But anything is better than nothing. You have to just do. Life is doing. Death is not doing. Life is doing. You might make mistakes. The Conditions of a Solitary Bird is based on the Carlos Castaneda books, and there's some great characters in there. It's about someone who got his PhD at UCLA for interviewing a shaman, a brujo, a sorcerer in Mexico named Don Juan Matus, who nobody ever saw. But he's got this PhD, and he wrote 13 books altogether about this apprenticeship he had with this shaman, right? And one of the characters is another shaman friend of Don Juan's, Don Genaro. And Don Juan's the talker, and Don Genaro is the action guy, So they're doing the same thing, but they're doing it in totally different ways, right? So Don Juan has this long explanation about what you're asking, how do you produce your passion? How do you find your path? How do you decide what is the right way to go, left or right or up or down? And Don Juan talks about, the cubic centimeter of chance, and just being aware is what you need to do. You have to work on being aware that there are choices, right? And Carlos, who wrote the book, says he doesn't quite get it. So they all turn to Don Genaro, and Don Genaro goes, and he pretends like he's shooting a shotgun in all these different directions, and everybody's laughing, but not even understanding why. And Don Juan says, he's telling you that you just got to do something. You have to, shoot the shot. Take a shot. And if it doesn't hit anything, turn somewhere else and shoot the shot.
I love that. You are anything is better than nothing. That is so true. Because doing nothing is a decision, right? Like, if you're gonna do no, all right, perfectly okay. So that was excellent. Now for the people, the next question is now for the people that have made the decision to shoot the shot, that have decided to do something, but we call it the muddle, the middle phase. You're stuck in the mud. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. What do you have to say to those people who are just have been doing something, but they're getting stuck and they don't know whether they should keep going or how to keep going?
Well, I always, for me, and basically all my answers to all my students' questions are, this is just how I do it. Okay. This is how I do it. This is where I found the information. This is how I arrived at this. That's it, because that's really everybody is that exact same person. Everybody really only believes in this, Vision Revision turned into an online free portal for education, which is still up right now. It's been used in different education programs around the world and the country. But even in my writing classes, if somebody wanted to know something like, what's a preposition? I would say, you know how to search that better than I do. I have an answer for you. It's on Vision Revision. And if you want to go to Vision Revision, you can just type in your question and it'll give you that answer. But no one, in my opinion, learns anything unless they think they thought of it, unless they see it from their own perspective, unless they invented it in a sense, So I force my students into that. I force them to find out on your own. I'm going to tell you how to pass this class, and part of it is just answering your own questions, learning how to do that, right? Of course, a lot of my colleagues in the English department were terribly upset that I wouldn't sell their $150 grammar book. I gave it away for free, and it's still there. Vision Revision is online, and my old videos basically look just like this one, and they say, I'm here to this whole thing is here just to help you succeed at whatever it is you want to succeed at. And I happen to know a little bit about communication, about learning, because I'm a student and I have problems. I have obstacles. So I overcome them for me. This is how I overcame my obstacles. may not work for you. If it doesn't, then do something else. But the bottom line is I'm now calling it reconciliation process, because since everything is a process, reconciling your life daily, moment by moment, even sometimes, you have to take yourself away from outside influences and just say, what is it I'm really trying to accomplish? Make it as simple as you possibly can. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay. If you say to yourself, I'm trying to make money, and that's your goal, then the other parts of it might be difficult, because making money is really not a worthy goal in life, in my opinion. It's okay to make money if that's a thing. I just as soon have more coconuts and bananas, enough to feed myself and my family, But I'm not going to take coconuts and bananas out of the mouths of others to get there. I'll figure out a way to feed that thirst. So reconciliation process is to understanding that everything's a process. What are you going to have to do to get to wherever you want to go? And if being happy is your goal, being healthy is your goal, being successful is your goal, those are grander goals. My final condition is to be to make sure that it's not hurting anyone else, because the collective and the individual consciousness are always active, whether we like it or not. That's just the way it is. The reconciliation process is just to figure out what it is you do, how you solve problems. Are you satisfied with that? You can change that, or you can just keep going if it's working for you and it's making you healthy, happy, successful, and also you're not hurting anybody, then and that's your goal, then keep doing that, whatever it happens to be. Individually, specifically, I've got a piece of information in the five principles of everything. I have lots of contributors. One of them is a guy named Jun Rhee, who invented the safety equipment for martial arts, the rubber stuff that is
Oh, yeah,
all
yeah,
over
yeah.
everybody. And he brought Taekwondo to the United States. He brought Taekwondo to the Olympics. He's really the father of Taekwondo in this country. But he was in Korea um, as a young man, and he became an interpreter for the U.S. Army and during the Korean War, right? And he said to himself, "What am I going to have to do to live my life? Being in war is not it, right?" He said, "Well, I'm going to learn how to read, write, and speak English." and and in that, he wrote a book called Trutopia eventually, which he writes about in the Five Principles book. And he basically says truth, beauty, and love are the goals that we all should be striving for. And if you have to pick one thing, just one thing to make your life better, always in every situation, is simply to tell the truth all the time. Period. Right? So I take I've taken that, and now I'm working on the Truth and Communication Act. I'm trying to get interest at a grassroots level, not Democratic Party, not Republican Party, not, our yeah, they want to jump on board. They are welcome to do it, but I'm trying to promote um, truth and communication. We have the right as human beings to expect, if we're electing people, to for them to tell us the truth. And we can make that a law. And in fact, that would solve a lot of our problems right now. All right. And we also have the right to communicate what we're thinking. Now, within that, there's lots of responsibilities, but I've boiled it down in my head, these two things, and people are going, I think you're onto something. I think you're onto something. And I didn't think of it. I just said, I saw a good idea and I said, I think I can do what I always do and make it a little bit better and more uh, apprehendable by a larger group of people. Because why? Because I'm making sense in my head, period, you know?
I'm definitely all for that, and I have read, when you sent it to me, the Truth and Communications Act, or the PDF version at least, and I'm like, "Yeah, we need this. Yeah. Get rid of lobbyists. Get rid of quit, start telling the truth," and I completely agree. So, Gordon, this has been incredible. Before I give you the final word here,
Yeah.
where can people find your work? Because you have done so many things. Where's the easiest places for people to go check out your work, get a hold of you, get your books? Where can people go to check you out?
Um, any of the browsers that you can type in my name and probably get who knows how many hits, um, on all sides of the issues. I've got the nonprofit, Heroes Hearts, HEROES, Heroes Hearts, HEARTS.org, has a lot of projects and links to a lot of what I'm doing. I'm on YouTube, G Richiusa, for people to remember. My name is spelled Rich I, United States of America, Richi USA. So YouTube, G Richiusa. I've been there since the beginning, since YouTube started. So I have a lot of stuff there, as well as shows that I've done, bifocal reviews, a lot of a message in a bottle, and etc. are all there. And I've even produced specials, hour-long specials, and I just put them online. I put them on cable. I put them wherever I can put them. Um, People still, every once in a while, find me and want me to, want to pay me for something. So I do that. But you can find my work, in a lot of different places. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Gordon, this has been a treat. Again, we're gonna have to do part two, three, because you've done so many things. What would you like to end this podcast with, or if there's anything else you'd like to share before we get out of here?
Um, well, the two final projects that I'm working on right now, and I'm always looking for help. Even though I have a board, I have officers, etc. My whole nonprofit is built on projects, and one of the projects that I'm working on right now, which is based on everything that we've talked about, is called Pieces of Aloha, and it talks about that brace that my father made from down Japanese plane at Pearl Harbor, which, in my perspective, was and his, by the way, was two imperialistic nations fighting over property that doesn't belong to them. Once again, uh, indigenous people, and there are indigenous people around the world, not just in America, people who understand that the earth is first, and then whatever you do afterwards is your thing as a human being. But taking care of the earth should be our number one goal as a community of humans. And so Pieces of Aloha is that documentary, covers not only the Hawaiian people, the truth about everything, okay? The truth about Pearl Harbor, the truth about the indigenous people getting shafted in this country, including the African crew my father had at Pearl Harbor that nobody knew about until I started researching it. We're Sicilian Americans. He was put in charge of an African crew because they considered Sicilians to be Black Italians in those days. And so that's one thing. I need help with Pieces of Aloha. I'm getting help now, and I've been offered encouragement from the Sundance Institute. So I'm hoping to go down that road and actually produce this thing, including, the Holocaust survivors that I've worked with, people who all connect to Heroes Heart, all the projects which go along with it are part of that. And the other part of it that I'm giving as a gift to indigenous people, including, not just Native Americans, but people around the world. I like to point out anyone who is from, of African descent of any sort is an indigenous person. They were the first people. They are more indigenous than anybody. So I'm giving that to the what I'm calling the Earth Games. because I understand how people think, and I understand the importance of our heroes are all now sports figures and also musicians and other things. We like to have people who kind of do things better than we do to look up to. But the Earth Games is a thing where we're going to put the Earth first, and I'm giving it to indigenous tribes. I'm giving it to indigenous people of all sorts as in a council to put on games. We have some really good opportunities coming up for sponsors, etc., to do the Earth Games. In fact, Gula World, Oshri, Hadari Oshri is taken on the responsibility of promoting the Earth Games for me. So, and I just want to step out of it because if I just come up with the idea, please, I got lots of other things I'm trying to accomplish too. I'll do what I can, but those two things, Pieces of Aloha and the Earth Games, I need help.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you. And that's part of Produce Your Passion is trying to find your tribe and community and letting people know, hey, people don't know unless you tell them, right? They
Right.
don't know unless you tell them. Is there an email people should contact you with, or just go through your website?
Um, the one that people seem to remember the best is Five Birds, Fivebirds. That's my martial arts style and my publishing company, etc. Five Birds. I use at mac.com because I work with the Macintosh, but it could be fivebirds at me.com, fivebirds at iCloud.com, fivebirds at whatever.com. That's the easiest email.
Sounds great. And shout out to Hidari. She's the reason I met you. Like
That's right.
she's a
Hey,
connector.
and
So
thank you. And thank
yeah.
you very much for this. I appreciate
No,
it.
no, thank you, Gordon. Stick around for just a second, but this has been a true treat. And again, it's amazing everything you've produced in your life and continue to produce. So I look forward to checking out these next projects.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. To learn more, go to produceyourpassion.com.